Hey there everyone, Ramesh here, back again with another video. In this video, we will learn how to use DTO in Spring Boot application. Well, DTO stands for Data Transfer Object and it is one of the widely used application architecture design pattern. Well, basically developer uses DTO to transfer data between client and server. So the main idea of using DTO is that we can reduce a lot of remote calls, guys. So as we know that remote calls are expensive, so we can use DTOs to gather all the information together, and we can send that information back to the client. So basically, instead of sending a single piece of information, we can gather all the required information together, and we can send that information back to the client. Okay, so this is how we use DTOs, guys. And if you can see here, this is a simple Spring Boot 3-layer architecture, and we have a controller, we have a service, and we have a repository or DAO layer. The repository or DAO layer basically talk with the database, and we have JP entities that are directly mapped to relational database tables. Well, if you can see here, basically many of the beginners, they create REST APIs and they return JP entities directly to the client. Okay, so let's say your JP entity has some sensitive information, for example password and other important information, and if your REST API directly exposes a JP entity to the client, that may lead a security issues, right? So instead of that, we can use a DTOs, and we can only send a required information to the client. Alright, and we can gather all the related information together, and we can send that information back to the client using DTOs. Alright guys, so basically we use DTOs to transfer data between client and server, and we can gather all the required information and we can send back to the client in a one shot, so that we can reduce remote calls. And we need a model mapping tools to map between DTOs to entity and entity to DTO. So we have model mapper and mapstrat, popular libraries in Java, so we can use them to map between DTOs and entity to and vice versa. So in this video, I'm going to write a code to map between DTOs and entities. So in upcoming videos, we're gonna see how to use model mapper library to map between DTO objects to model objects, and we will also see how to use mapstrat to map between DTOs and entities. Alright guys, so without further ado, let's go ahead and let's create a Spring Boot application, and let's see how to use DTOs to transfer data between server to client. And yeah, in order to create a Spring Boot application, we're gonna use Spring Initializer. So in a browser, just type start.spring.io. This will bring Spring Initializer, and then keep Maven project selected and language Java, Spring Boot 2.5.4. so let's keep this Spring Boot version, that is stable and latest. Don't choose snapshot and other releases. Well, go ahead and provide a metadata, project metadata over here. So group ID I'm going to give such as net.java guides. You can group any group ID that you want, but I'm going to keep net.java guides. And artifact ID is going to be our project name, so I'm going to do project name as Spring Boot DTO tutorial, and name is same as artifact ID. Description, demo project for Spring Boot and DTO, and package name as net.java.springboot. Okay, packaging keep jar, Java version keep 11, and go to add dependency section over here, and here we're gonna choose Spring Web Starter dependency to build REST APIs. And again, we need a Spring Data JP dependency to talk with the database, and we're gonna use S2 in-memory database, and we're gonna use a Lombok library to reduce the boilerplate code. Okay guys, so once you select all the required dependencies, so go ahead and click on generate to generate our project as a zip file on our file system, and there we go. Now go ahead and open the zip file in a folder, and just unzip this folder. Okay, great. Now go ahead and open IntelliJ IDEA. So you can see here open option to open the existing project in IntelliJ IDEA. Go ahead and click on open, and go to the location where your Spring Boot application is extracted, and select and open. and there we go. Springboard application is successfully imported in IntelliJ IDEA. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a packaging structure first. Just expand and go to root package, right click, new one, then choose package, and let's give package name as model. Let's create another package, new and then package, and let's give package name as controller. Okay guys, and let's create one more package, let's say service. So we are creating 3-layer architecture. So we are using 3-layer architecture. So according to 3-layer architecture, we are going to create a packaging structure over here. Now we'll create a package repository. Okay, great. Let's go and let's create one more package and let's name it as DTO. Okay, great. Now once packaging structure is ready, then we'll build a model layer. So right click on model, new, and then Java class. Let's give class name as user. Okay, so let me just scroll up here and let's define the fields for user class. Private long ID, and then private string email, and then private string first name, private string last name, and then private string password. Okay, great. So now we have created a plain Java class. Let's use Lombok annotation, that is add data Lombok connotation to reduce boilerplate code such as creating getter setters and toString hash code equals method, etc. And we're going to use no argument constructor, and also we're going to use all argument constructor annotations to generate a constructor for this class. Now this is a plain Java class. Let's make this Java class as a JP entity by using JP annotations. Let's use add entity annotation. Along with that, let's use add table annotation to give a table name for this class. Let's give table name as users. Okay guys, and now we're gonna make ID as a primary key. For that, let's use add ID annotation and also use generated value annotation and define the strategy as identity. Okay, great. Now if you see here first name, last name, so we need to give a proper column name for these fields. So for that, I'm going to use add column annotation to map or to provide a column name for this field. Column name something like first underscore name. Similarly, let's give column name for last name, something like last underscore name. Okay, so if you don't provide add column annotation, then JP is smart enough to give a column name as field name. Alright, our user class is ready. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create one more JP entity and we perform many-to-one relationship. So let's go ahead and give class name as location. Okay, and then define the ID, long ID, and then private string, let's say place, and then private string and description. Okay, private double, let's give location longitude. Okay, private double latitude. Okay guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use again Lombok annotations here to reduce the boilerplate code. Let's use no argument constructor. Let's use all argument constructor annotation. Okay, and then let's use JP entity annotation to make this class as a JP entity. Table annotation to give a name to the class, let's say locations. Okay, and let's use add ID annotation to give a primary key, and also add generated value annotation to define the strategy. So strategy, we are going to use identity. Okay, great. So we need to add column annotation for other fields because this field looks good as column name, so let's give as it is. We're gonna make many to one relationship, so let's private location and let's add annotation for many to one annotation, and we need to define the patch type over here. Patch type is eager, and then let's say optional as a false, and we're gonna define a join column, and join column name should be location ID, correct? Alright, we have created user and location JP entities, and we have established a many to one relationship between them. Okay, now model layer is completed. Now we're gonna implement repository layer. So go ahead and right click on repository new, and then choose Java class and choose interface, and let's give repository name as user repository. Hit enter. So make sure that this is the interface and extends GPA repository. I'm gonna pass first parameter as user and second parameter as a long. So this is the type of the primary key. Okay, so let's go and let's create one more repository. Right click on repository package new, and then choose Java class and choose interface, and repository name something like location repository. Hit enter, and this interface should extend JPA repository, and we need to pass first parameter as location and second parameter is a long. Alright, so we have created repositories, so we'll get CRUD operations for respective entities to interact with the database. Okay, so we no need to write any code to implement these interfaces. So by default, Spring Data JPA provides a default implementation for these methods. So yeah, now we have completed repository layer implementation. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a DTO class. So go to DTO package, right click new, and then choose Java class, and let's give class name as user location DTO. So look at the DTO name here, user location DTO. So this DTO contains the information of user and location. So we are going to write a REST API which returns a user and location details to the client. Okay, and we are going to use this DTO class to transfer user and location details from server to client. That's the reason this is the naming convention, guys. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a fields that are required to send information from server to client. For instance, we need a user ID. Okay, and let's say we need a email ID, user email ID. Okay, so this is the user information, and along with the user information we need to send locations information. So let's say private string location, that is place, and private, let's say we need to provide a location, longitude and latitude. So for that, so make sure that your model attributes and the DTO attributes should be same. So I'm going to just copy these attribute names, because whenever we do mapping between DTO and entity, so the field should be same. Otherwise whenever we use mapping tools such as model mapper or mapstruct, and if the fields are not same, then your data won't be populated. Okay, that we will see. And we need a longitude, right? So let me copy this field and paste it here. Okay, so let's say we have a DTO class with this information that we want to send back to the client. Okay, great. And if you want to send any other details, then what you can do is you can just go ahead and define the fields in this DTO class. Okay, so now instead of creating getter setters, we're going to use add data Lombok connotation. Perfect. So next we're gonna implement service layer. So go to service package, right click new, and then to Java class, and let's give class name as user service. Okay, hit enter, and let's annotate this class with add service annotation. Alright, and we're gonna inject here user repository. For that, let's declare the user repository field here, and let's use auto add annotation to inject this dependency. Okay, great. And then we create a method here which returns a list of DTO objects. Get all users location. Now here I'm going to create a private method which will convert user entity to user location DTOs. So private, and the return type of this method is user location DTO, and let's say method name is convert DTO, convert entity to DTO, something like that, and the method argument is user entity class. Okay, great. And within this method we're going to create object of user location DTO. Alright, and let's set all the details from user entity to user location DTO. Set user ID, user.get user ID, get ID, and then user location DTO dot set email, user dot get email. What is this compilation error? Let me quickly check. Okay, so go to user location DTO, and here you can see we have provided string as a type, so this should be long, and just save it and go to user service, and you can see the compilation error gone right. Okay, so similarly let's set location details, set place, user dot get location dot get place, user location DTO dot set longitude, user dot get location dot get longitude, and user location DTO dot get latitude. Okay, set latitude, user dot get location dot get latitude. Okay, great. Now simply return user location DTO object. Alright, what we have done, we have just taken user JPA entity, and we have converted this user JPA entity to user location DTO, and this user location DTO contains all the user and location information. Alright guys, and let's head over to get all users location method and simply return user repository dot, let's call find all method, which returns a list of users. Okay, and then we're going to use stream here, and then we're going to use map. So map, inside map we're going to simply call convert entity to DTO method. Okay, so this method will basically convert user JPA entity to user location DTO. Okay, and then we need to call collect method to collect the result. Alright, simple. We have just converted list of users to list of user location DTOs, and here we have used map method, so this will basically iterate over a list of users, and it will internally call a method to convert user entity to user location DTO. Okay, pretty simple. So now we have implemented service layer, so go to controller layer, right click new and choose Java class. Let's give controller name as something like user controller, and let's annotate this class with add rest controller annotation, and let's inject user service here, user service, and let's use @atoid annotation. Okay, and let's create a method public which will return a list of user location DTO, and let's do method name as get all users location. Okay, and then simply return user service dot get all users location, and let's annotate this method with @get mapping annotation, and let's define the REST endpoint URL here. Let's say users location, something like that. Save the file. Now we have created a single REST API which will return a list of user location DTO objects. Okay, so I hope you understood how to use DTOs. So if you can see here service, so in a service, user service, we have converted user entity to DTO, and controller, in a controller, user controller will basically call this method, and this method returns a DTO list of DTOs to the client. We are not using JP entity here, we are using DTOs, and DTO basically contains all the record information. For example, we want to send a user details along with that location details. Okay, so if you can see here, user JP entity contains a lot of information, right? For example, first name, last name, password. So we don't want to send this information to the client. We only want to send email and location and user ID. So that we have just defined in a DTO, and only this information we are going to send to the client. Okay, great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to write some code to populate some fields in the table, so that whenever we call this REST API, which will return a list of user and its location from the table. So go to main entry point class here, and here we're going to implement command line runner interface which provides a run method. So this run method will execute whenever our Spring Boot application starts. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly inject user repository. Okay, and I use @atoid annotation here, and similarly I want to use location repository, and let's use @atoid annotation to inject this dependency. Okay, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a location object equal to new, and then location, and just go ahead and set the details to the location. Let's say location place, let's say Pune, location dot set description. So description something like Pune is great place to live, or something like that. And location dot set, let's give longitude something like 40.5. location dot set latitude something like 30.6. just give any dummy details. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call location repository dot save method to save the location. Okay, perfect, save it. So if you can see here, this is @atoid annotation. Okay, now we have saved a location in database. Similarly, we're going to create a user object here, user1 new user, and quickly set the data to the user object here. Set first name Ramesh, user1 dot set last name, let's say Furtari, user1 dot set email, let's say ramesh@gmail.com. Similarly, user1 dot set password, let's say secret. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is we're going to use user repository dot save method to save this user object, user1. Alright, so similarly I'm going to store one more user object, so I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and let's call it as user2. Okay, great. Now we have created a location, and we have stored in a database, and we have created a couple of users which we have stored in a database. Let's go ahead and let's run our Spring Boot application, and let's verify the REST endpoint, that is users location, okay, which returns a list of DTO objects. So go to the main entry point class, and here is a main method. So right click, just click on this icon and run Spring Boot application as a standalone. Look at here, we got one exception, that is not null property references a null or transient value for location field. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna need to set a location, because location is not null, right? So here for user1 we need to set the location, right? Set location, just pass location object. And similarly for user2 dot set location, okay. Just save it and go ahead and again run the Spring Boot application. Alright guys, our Spring Boot application is up and running in embedded Tomcat server in port 8080. Now let's head over to the browser and let's test the REST API. The REST API endpoint URL is users-location. So head over to Chrome browser. In a new tab, just type localhost 8080/users-location, and there we go. We got a response as a JSON. Okay, so this is a list of JSON objects. We have written a DTO, right, in a response. So if you can see here, user ID, email, place, longitude, latitude, only the required information we got. The client only get the required information. All right, great. All right guys, this is how we use DTOs in Spring Boot application. So basically we create a DTO to transfer only the required information to the client. Okay, all right, so we have created only one REST API, but you can go ahead and you can create other REST APIs, for example post, put, delete REST endpoints. Guys, I would like to suggest my building REST APIs with Spring Boot course. So in this course I have shown you how to use DTOs in a real-time projects. So in this course I have built a blog application from the scratch, and I have used DTOs a lot. Alright, so I highly suggest you guys to enroll this course so that you will get hands-on building real-time REST APIs with Spring Boot. I have used DTOs a lot for all the operations like CRUD operation, pagination, sorting, and exception handling, validation, okay, etc. Okay, and you can see here these are the technology stack I have used in this course. So this course is very popular guys, a lot of people have joined for this course. I highly suggest you guys to just check out the videos and the sample videos for the preview. I have given some videos for preview, so you can check out those videos, and if you are interested you can join. Alright, so thanks for watching this video. So in this video I have written a code to manually convert entity to DTO, but ideally we should use a library such as model mapper or mapstruct library. So in next video I will show you how to use model mapper library. After that I will show you how to use mapstruct library to map between these entities, these objects, like from JP entity to DTO and DTO to JP entity. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. I will see you in next video.